New reports share that signs and exhibits about slavery and racism are being removed from national park sites under a new Interior Department directive. We'll break down what that means and which parks are affected. A push to turn Florida's Springs into the country's newest national park is running into opposition. We'll look at why advocates say it could do more harm than good. Big changes at the Bureau of Land Management affect how public lands can be used, a brand new federal wildfire agency, and a major water system failure at Mount Rainier National Park that's leaving visitors high and dry. Plus, updates from the Grand Canyon, Zion, Yellowstone, and more. I'm Jason Epperson. This is Parkography, and it's time for the latest in national park and public lands news. Welcome back, everybody. First up, according to reporting from the Washington Post, signs and exhibits related to slavery at multiple National Park Service sites are due to be removed, according to 4 people familiar with the matter. Some have already been removed. The materials include an historic photograph of a formerly enslaved man showing scars on his back. The individuals spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak with the media. They told the Post that the removals were in line with President Donald Trump's March executive order directing the Interior Department to eliminate information that reflects a, quote, corrosive ideology that disparages historic Americans. According to the article, National Park Service officials are broadly interpreting that directive to apply to information on racism, sexism, slavery, gay rights, or persecution of indigenous people. The Interior Department issued policies earlier this year ordering agency employees to report any information, including signage and gift shop items, that might be out of compliance with a deadline of tomorrow. Trump officials also launched an effort asking park visitors to report offending material. The latest removals, the Post says, include information at Harpers Ferry National Historical Park in West Virginia, where the abolitionist John Brown led a raid seeking to arm slaves for a revolt. At Harpers Ferry, staff flagged more than 30 signs, according to a person familiar with the matter, and documents reviewed by the Post that highlight information potentially in violation of the new policy. Staff are now expected to cover up parts of signs or remove them. The article asserts that staff have also been told that information at the President's House site in Philadelphia, where George Washington kept slaves, does not comply with the policy and items need to be removed or covered. And the article says Park Service officials have ordered the removal of a photograph illustrating violence against slaves at one National Park Service site. The famous photograph taken in 1863 shows scars on the back of a man probably named Peter Gordon from wounds inflicted by his masters before he escaped slavery. The Washington Post did not specify which park would be impacted by the removal of the photograph, though prints and images of it are apparently on display at multiple sites and at the National Gallery of Art. The image was reprinted wildly in the late 1800s as proof of the horrors of enslavement that some Americans had not seen. Informally, the picture is known as the Scourged Black. It remains a key image of its era. A Park Service spokesman confirmed to the Post that exhibits were under review, saying, quote, interpretive materials that disproportionately emphasize negative aspects of U.S. history or historical figures without acknowledging broader contexts or national progress can unintentionally distort understanding rather than enrich it. On our last news roundup, we reported on a Florida congressman's proposal to join together several springs in North and Central Florida into the country's 64th national park, and that proposal is being met with some pushback. U.S. Representative Randy Fine's Path to Florida Springs National Park Act, if passed, would direct the federal government to conduct a study on how to make a national park from springs in the Ocala National Forest and a handful of state and county park sites in the area. Quote, changing state parks or state forests into national forests or national parks doesn't do any of the things that need to be done to actually restore the springs, said Ryan Smart, executive director of the nonprofit Florida Springs Council, which advocates for the protection and preservation of springs statewide. Quote, the harm that's happening to the springs is because of land uses on private property around the springs. A Change.org petition opposing the idea of a Florida Springs National Park now has over 8,000 signatories, saying, quote, the designation could open the door to unsustainable tourism and commercialization in the Ocala National Forest. While we value public access to natural spaces, this bill threatens the long-term health of one of Florida's most ecologically sensitive regions. Fine argued that the main purpose of the bill was to protect the springs, though he did tout the economic boom a national park designation can bring. The bill was introduced to the House in July and assigned to the House Committee on Natural Resources, where legislators will hold hearings and revise it before potentially passing it to the full chamber for a vote, where then it would need to move on to the Senate and the president. If it becomes a law, the Interior Department has 3 years to complete the study and evaluate if the designated area contains nationally significant resources and report its findings. Florida's more than 1,000 springs, the largest concentration of freshwater springs in the world, are under threat from development, agricultural pollution, and climate change. The health of the springs are vital as they are directly linked to 90% of the state's drinking water. If you want my personal opinion, I think it's encouraging that the bill designates a program to study the idea of turning the springs into a national park. Often Congress abruptly makes the decision to designate a national park and leaves it up to the Interior Department to figure out how to implement it. More in a moment, but first, this episode is sponsored by Slinky Stove. Slinky Stove is the patented collapsible fire pit that stays intact when packed. It's perfect for RVs and car camping or in your own backyard. It sets up in seconds, providing you with smokeless airflow rings and a clean burning fire. No more dancing around campfire smoke. Inexpensive and packed with extras, the Slinky Stove offers a 3-level cooking system that gives you flexibility, whether it's morning coffee or evening campfire chili. And with contained ash, cleanup's quick, just the way it should be on public lands. Order yours now at slinkystove.com or click the link in the description. The Department of the Interior is proposing to rescind the Bureau of Land Management's Public Lands Rule. The 2024 Public Lands Rule, formerly known as the Conservation and Landscape Health Rule, made conservation an official use of public lands, putting it on the same level as the Bureau of Land Management's other uses of public lands. A release from the Interior Department characterized conservation use as no use at all, meaning the land is not being used for recreation, grazing, petroleum, minerals, housing, etc. The release said that stakeholders, including the energy industry, recreational users, and agricultural producers across the country, have expressed deep concern that the rule created regulatory uncertainty, reduced access to lands, and undermined the longstanding multiple use mandate of the Bureau of Land Management as established by Congress. Now the BLM proposes to rescind this rule in full. Quote, the previous administration's public lands rule had the potential to block access to hundreds of thousands of acres of multiple use land, preventing energy and mineral production, timber management, grazing, and recreation across the West, said Interior Department Secretary Doug Burgum. The Bureau of Land Management is under the Secretary of the Interior in the Interior Department. Burgum argues that the public lands rule exceeded the BLM's statutory authority by placing an outsized priority on conservation or no use at the expense of multiple use access, threatening to curtail grazing, energy development, recreation, and other traditional land uses, saying many rural communities depend on public lands for livelihoods tied to agriculture, mining, and energy production. The Department of the Interior also announced jointly with the Department of Agriculture the new U.S. Wildland Fire Service to modernize wildfire management nationwide. Quote, for too long, outdated and fragmented systems have slowed our ability to fight fires and protect lives. Under President Trump's leadership, we are cutting through the bureaucracy and building a unified modern wildfire response system that works as fast and as fearlessly as the men and women on the front lines, said Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum. By streamlining federal capabilities and strengthening our partnerships with state, tribal, and local teams, we will deliver the common sense reforms needed to safeguard our communities, our lands, and the future. Currently, there are multiple fire agencies, particularly due to the fact that most federal land is split between the Interior Department, which has all sorts of agencies, including the National Park Service, and the Department of Agriculture, which has under it the U.S. Forest Service. The Paradise section of Mount Rainier National Park was hit with heavy rains on September 6th, stirring up line sediment in the Edith Creek drainage, which clogged the water treatment system filters, causing water lines to lose pressure and potentially allowing harmful contaminants into the water system, according to a news release from the National Park Service. Restrooms in the area are being shut down completely, and the historic 120-room Paradise Inn is operating without running toilets, water fountains, showers, and sinks. The inn's dining room has been shut down as well. Facebook commenters have reported that during their stay at the inn, they were given gallons of water to flush the toilets in their rooms, along with bottled water and sanitizing wipes. Visitors are being asked to bring their own food and water to the park. Porta potties have been delivered, but there's been no timeline shared on how long it will take to make repairs. Other areas of the park are unaffected. On September 7th at approximately 12:40 p.m., the Grand Canyon Regional Communications Center received a report of a vehicle with a single occupant that had gone over the rim near the South Kaibab trailhead. Park rangers responded immediately and recovered the body, which was located about 300 feet below the rim. An investigation into the incident is being conducted by the National Park Service in coordination with the Coconino County Medical Examiner, but the park's press release seems to indicate that it was likely a suicide, ending the release with the toll-free number for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you know someone who is struggling, help is available by calling or texting 988 to connect with trained counselors who can provide free, confidential support 24/7, 365. Zion National Park reopened the Weeping Rock Trail and nearby Shuttle Stop 7 for public use on Friday, September 5th. The closure has been in place since a November 2023 rockfall, and it allowed maintenance crews to repair the trailhead, railings, and stairs while geologists assess the site. One of Zion's signature landmarks, Weeping Rock, is known for its dripping alcove and lush hanging gardens formed as groundwater seeps through the Navajo sandstone. The path now features repaired stairways and railings, new sandstone curbing, and colored concrete tread designed to blend with the surroundings and traction textured to enhance safety. Other destinations previously accessible from the Weeping Rock Trail, including Hidden Canyon and the East Rim Trail to Observation Point, remain closed. Yellowstone's geysers and hot springs have claimed a lot of items over the years. One of the most common, hats. Lots and lots of hats. Park employees say they've fished out more than 300 hats this year alone. It's all part of the job for Yellowstone's geology program team. They're folks in red safety vests you might see leaning over steaming pools with a giant grabber pole. Their mission is to rescue runaway trash and debris before it damages the park's delicate hydrothermal features. In 2025 so far, the team has removed over 13,000 pieces of trash over more than 1,300 miles of boardwalks and trails. This year's highlights also include a Birkenstock sandal, a stuffed koala toy, a fake Louis Vuitton bucket hat, a pizza box with slices still inside, and even a Polaroid picture of Excelsior Geyser found inside Excelsior Geyser. The team also removes rocks and sticks. Even natural debris like tossed rocks can permanently damage a hot spring's temperature or color. So if you're heading to Yellowstone, hold on to your hat, literally. And if you drop your IP in the lake ball cap into the boiling spring, like the one that was found earlier this year, don't worry, the geology program has probably seen stranger things. That's it for this week's National Park and Public Lands News Roundup. If you like what we do, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.